Is the hammer finally coming for Michigan? According to ESPN college football reporter Pete Thamel, the NCAA is going to release its findings, its list of infractions, its punishment for Michigan on Friday. It's a long time coming, going back, working on almost 2 years now that this story has played out. And it certainly appears as if we're going to get a resolution on Friday. I don't need to rehash all the details for you about the Connor Stallion sign-stealing allegations or what Michigan fans would have you believe is Hamburger Gate. We've had those discussions, and if you're watching the video or listening to the podcast, you know what Michigan has done and is accused of. But the question remains, is Michigan about to get the hammer from the NCAA? And in my eyes, the answer to that question is no. No, they're not. Brian Windhorst meme for a second. Why would the NCAA release this on a Friday? On a summer Friday, one of the final summer Fridays. Well, you got to get it done before the college football season starts because you got to make it look as if you really investigated this really hard. You put a lot of time and effort into making sure this was done correctly, etc. You also don't want it to overshadow what happens on the field. So you have to get it done before next Friday because thank the Lord God above, college football returns next Saturday. So you got to get it done before next Friday because you don't want it going into the weekend that actual football is being played. But you do want it going into the weekend. People are all too familiar now with the Friday afternoon news dump. When you have news you don't want covered all that extensively or thoroughly, you drop it at about 4:30 on Friday afternoon. Why? Because everybody's on autopilot at that point. And if you're anything like me, you might be on autopilot by about 11:15 on Friday. But the NCAA doesn't want you to talk about the punishment that Michigan's going to get. Now, Brian Windhorst meme again. Why wouldn't they want you to talk about the punishment? It's either because it's incredibly severe, that the punishment goes so far beyond the scope of what had happened was that it doesn't fit the crime. The alternative side of that is what I think is the most likely, in that it's such a lackluster punishment penalty that they also don't want that to drive conversation either. The NCAA is today a toothless organization that universities and colleges should not fear whatsoever because everybody is just waiting for somebody to ignite the fuse to say, you know what, to hell with this. We don't need the NCAA. And quickly, the Power Four breaks away from the NCAA. Somebody's just got to have the balls, the berries, cojones, velvet rope and two bouncers, whatever phrase you'd like to use, to start that movement. And the second it starts, the NCAA is not going to be able to put it back in the bottle. So they want to avoid that at all costs because they're not dumb. They're running a multi-billion-dollar business. And without the likes of the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, they don't have a multi-billion-dollar business. So the NCAA lacks a backbone, lacks a spine, toothless. I will tell you that I dislike scholarship reduction penalties because that punishes, it absolutely punishes programs, by the way. It is difficult to compete when other schools have the ability to have more kids go to college for free than you do. But that's the problem, is that with scholarship reductions, you take away 30 scholarships, let's say. That's 30 kids who don't get to go to college for free. I think that sucks. I think you should think that that sucks. The NCAA is not going to impose, like, I still hear this like it's 2001. like no TV, like you're a TV ban. You're not allowed to play on TV. Also a dumb penalty because that punishes schools who did nothing wrong. And also, it's $1 billion business. You're not going to say no TV ban. So what are the possibilities that the NCAA can levy? There are scholarship reductions, which I think sucks regardless of the situation. I think that stinks. That, I think, is probably the most likely. There's a subsection of Big Ten fans, Ohio State fans, Michigan State fans, Notre Dame fans who will tell you, and maybe college football fans as a whole, who will tell you that the national championship banner and trophy, the banner's coming down, the trophy's going to be returned, it's going to be vacated. The 2023 national champion is going to be a big fat asterisk. I don't believe that that's true. I don't believe that that's going to happen. I don't think that in a million years that it's going to be turned over. I don't think Michigan's going to vacate a win, to tell you the truth. I think you're going to see the record books as normal as can be from here until eternity, that magically, under Jim Harbaugh's tutelage, the Wolverines flipped a switch, became a significantly improved program, started beating up on Ohio State and everybody else, and eventually won the national championship. That's what the record books are going to say until the end of time, in my view. But the NCAA can't look completely toothless, because then everybody will know that the NCAA is completely toothless. So the idea that the national championship trophy is getting returned, or that Michigan's going to get the death penalty, what have you, I don't think is likely at all. You know what I think is likely? Permanent show causes. Lifetime bans for Connor and Jim Harbaugh. That's what I think the ultimate punishment becomes. Is that the NCAA says Jim Harbaugh can never coach in the NCAA again, which is not a punishment. Jim Harbaugh's 61 years old. He made millions of dollars playing in the NFL, made $1 million coaching in the NFL, made millions of dollars coaching at Michigan. When you're 61 years old, you have plenty of money, and probably already not a lot of interest in going back and coaching in college. Is a lifetime ban all that much of a punishment? Probably not. But the NCAA sure can beat its chest that we've banned him for life. He can never come back. See how tough we are? No, not really. And I think most people will see through that. And for Connor Stallions, what have you taken away? He was already really unlikely to get another job in the NCAA to begin with. You just made it formal that he can't get hired by a university. And that's not like he can get hired by an NAIA college, a junior college. He already had a job coaching at a high school. These aren't really strong penalties punishing people for doing the incorrect thing. I think that you're probably going, like, best case scenario, if you're out for blood, if you think that this is some gigantic injustice, I think the best case scenario for you is that the NCAA forces Michigan to say, release a statement that says, hey, we might have acted improperly, might have stepped outside of the law, you might say. I think that's the best case scenario, that if you think that this has been a gigantic conspiracy, scandal, etc., I think that's realistically the best case outcome, is that Michigan is forced to admit, hey, yeah, we might have cheated there a little bit. And Michigan fans get to say, see, we told you we did nothing wrong. We told you that this was all just a giant witch hunt. They hate us because they ain't us. And I don't know how you could really argue against that, because I don't think the NCAA is coming down with the hammer that so many people have been led to believe has been coming for so long. I just don't see that happening. I would love to sit here on Sunday and open up the show by telling you, well, I'm an idiot, huh? Holy cow. Sure was a lot of punishments levied by the NCAA. I just think that it's more likely that I bump uglies with Selma Hayek than it is that the NCAA comes out and says, you know what, we're shutting down Michigan's football program for 2 years, making sure they have to sell all their equipment in their stadium. I don't know what the hammer truly was. I just don't think the NCAA is swinging it. Want to know your thoughts. Do you think the hammer's coming for Michigan? Because clearly I don't. I'd love to read your thoughts if you disagree with me in the comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily